my birthday has always been like around death. It's very bizarre.
What do you
Today
mean?
so far,
Are
I'm
you
fine.
dying?
No, but like throughout my childhood, there was weird moments of like death on or around my birthday. And I always think about this coming around because not only is my birthday around like Passover and then Easter time, so it's like
Right.
the resurrection, Good Friday, and all that stuff.
Passover, yeah,
Passover, and
yeah.
then the Last Supper, right?
Sure.
All that stuff. But like this isn't even funny. But I was thinking about this on the way over. So I grew up on a farm, right? I was the only person on a farm in my whole area. So on my birthday, all the kids from in town, the school would like, we'll go to Shane's farm for the birthday. We'll do pony rides. And one day on my birthday on the bus, my dog was dead in the yard as we all drove by the house. I'm like, what the heck kind of So it's like an early memory
Wow.
of
How
my
old were you?
birthday. It must have been 7 or 8.
Wow.
So that was cool. And then this is actually the 10-year anniversary of my favorite funeral. And I don't mean that I was happy this person died. It was because of my hero. But it was just like the culmination of so much chaos. My 30th birthday was at my grandfather's funeral. And I think about this a lot. That spring, I spent almost every day for like 3 weeks in an ER watching different people die. 2 people die, and one person just barely escaped death. Nancy's cousin was the first. That was up in Rochester. And that started in like March, I guess, early March or mid-March. Go up there. She's like in ICU. And we went up there. We drove from Hudson Valley, New York, all the way up to Rochester. I thought we were going to say goodbye. She was a college kid, right? And it was insane and scary. And she pulled through, and we got home. And like a day later, Nancy's grandfather just like fell into a coma. And I spent like a week in the hospital. Like we were all just like at his bedside, and we had been living with him, for like a year, taking care of him. He had bone cancer. So it wasn't like a surprise, but it's still a surprise, right?
Yeah.
And it's like watching him just wither away in an ICU after then just spending a week prior in an ICU. And you get really accustomed to the sounds of an ICU. Like if you've been in an ICU, you get the beeping and the whirring of the machines and the sounds of machines that keep people like just barely alive. So then he passed away, and we had his funeral. And then on April 1st, on April Fool's Day, I got the call that my grandfather fell into a coma in Florida. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, right? So like we live with Nancy's grandfather, and that was her like hero, her only like father figure, right? And then my hero, my grandfather, like I love this guy. I had great stories. He's the person like I started thinking about being a writer because he wasn't a writer, but he had the best stories, right? So, and I'd spent like 15 years recording all his stories. So like I have all his information I downloaded, right?
Right.
So then I spent that week in the hospital watching his kidneys fail, watching him and then eventually die. And then my 30th birthday was at his funeral. Like funerals in Florida, like the way people die in Florida, the way people are buried in Florida is so ridiculous because it's all above ground now. So this guy, my grandfather was a hearse driver, right? So we had a very dark sense of humor.
God.
He'd always joke about, he was really tall, right? He was like a little bit taller than me. So he's like 6'3", 6'4". And he'd be like, a hearse is the only car that has enough legroom for me. And he loved to drive that hearse, and he'd sing to the corpses in the back. And he'd do all these crazy jobs, like they called them transports, where someone's family got enough money to put the dead relative in a new, better casket and plot, maybe a better view, something like that. Because there's people who were like in ground, buried below ground. Before Florida was like, you got to put them either in like crazy expensive cement blocks underground, although the flooding, because the water table and like there's so many floods that happen and bodies just pop up out of the ground. Before they changed that, and now, so he did like jobs like that, crazy stories. But what happened was after they changed that law and most people started to just opt to be buried above ground, these giant mausoleums, most mausoleums in Florida, the newer ones are just like giant ice trays. Like they just look like there's like 50 people in a giant box, and you just slide it out and you throw them in, and you throw them in. But it was just like the most ridiculous way to spend my 30th birthday. And it was very bizarre. I like became him that day. Like I looked just like him, right? And so all his friends came for the funeral. And well, first I wrote like this really ridiculous, like long eulogy, right? I was devastated, and I wrote it at his workbench. He was like a tinker, like he'd drill holes into his bullets, at the workbench, just in case, because they open up big time in the body. If if you ever need to take care of someone or an alligator, he had an alligator issue.
Right.
and I had to apologize at the funeral because I told him I'd give him a Vikings funeral, and I wasn't able to. I tried. Trust me. There was a man-made lake behind their house, and I'm like, Grandma, I'm burning his body on a raft right here. She's like, no, you're not. I'm like, all right, fine. So funeral goes down, all his friends show up, and they're all just, and it might be because they're just old, but I literally felt my face making his facial expressions all of a sudden. It was so bizarre. And I could feel it happening. It was so odd. And they're calling me his name, Norman, everyone. And I'm like, okay, they're just old. You know, everyone's like 85, but it was happening all day long. And then that was like one of my first real encounters with something weird. And I've told the story a few times, but the first one was I was at the house, at my grandma's house. I'd been there my whole life, like 30 years, just going, you know, visiting. And all of a sudden, I'd never heard this before, an alarm started going off. So she has an alarm. It has never gone off. I've never heard it go off. Nothing ever happened like that. But then all of a sudden, alarm goes off and tells you what window might be open or something. And it was the window over his workbench where he spent a lot of his time. And that's where I wrote the eulogy like the night before.
Did you write about this in one of the
it was in the early Inverted World.
That.
Yep.
Yeah,
it was in maybe the simulation story.
Yes,
which one. Yeah,
that was it. Yeah.
So
I remember that.
That was like
very
really
clearly
weird because that window never opened.
Yeah,
no one touched that window, but now all of a sudden that window opened. I was like, oh, that's really weird. Right. And then everyone went home, but I stayed just to make sure my grandma was okay. Right? They'd been together like it was about to be like their 60th anniversary. Right? She was old and frail. Wow. Eventually, she'd move in with us, with me and Nancy. But I just stayed behind. And my last day there, I woke up super early. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning. And I just go sit in her little living room. And the ceiling fan just starts turning off and on. I can hear the button going, like being pushed. And it's like an electric button, and you hear it, and it keeps changing speeds. That has also never happened in that house, ever. And I just instantly knew. I was like, that's my grandfather. I think he's talking. And I'm just like, all right. I took it as him being like, she's going to be okay, right? I'll be here. I'm chilling. He's probably got some like hollow points from the afterlife or something. But that was, I could never explain that. You know, those two things were so weird to me. And there was something there. So I don't know what. But so that was like my birthdays. And there's just so many stories like that of like my birthday and like weird. Like I've lost a really good friend on my birthday. In high school, another close family friend on my birthday. So it's always like Merle Haggard and I had the same birthday. One of the greats. Sure. April 6th. He died on our birthday. It's just a weird time for me. I'm always, kind of like thinking about life and death.
So you're not just turning 40 and thinking about the mortality of life. This is something that's been a consistent theme in your life. Like every birthday kind of brings up the idea of death.
100%. I was born 40, first of all. Like this is nothing new. I just look older, but I was certainly I had some weird issues as a child. Always talking about death.
Anything happened today?
No, that's why I knocked on wood.
Not yet.
Not yet. No, it was a good day. It was a good day.
Our audio died.
Our audio, yeah. True. But
you're thinking about it, like it's at the top of your mind because it is a milestone. Yeah, being 40 is a huge milestone.
Yeah, halfway there.
And that's really something.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's like I'm not fearful of it. Like, of course, I don't really want to die, but like I also believe like if I live a good life, hopefully I'll have an eternal life and my family will be there, and that's only a new thing to me, right? Sure. But it's always been a part of my life, and I think it's because of growing up on a farm. Constant death, right? I was burying my quote unquote friends, my horses or dogs and cats I was a year old on my mom's back as she was digging a hole for a horse, right? Into a landfill that we really weren't supposed to use. Right. They're no longer there. So but whoever's at that house, check out the landfill. It's dope.
It's a reality that a lot of people are sheltered from. When you live on the farm and you actually deal with day-to-day life and death. Like that's not something that the average person gets to experience.
No, that's why I was such like a weirdo at school. Like, I'm like my weekend was I was a barrel racer, but also burying things. I'm like, so how was your weekend? I didn't have a TV either.
Right.
What I had no idea what Nickelodeon was. I heard about it and like that sounds like some weird witchcraft. I don't know what that is.
It kind of was.
It was, right? So yeah, my whole life was like that, and but I think it's a okay thing to think about death. You don't want to fear it. You don't want to obsess over it, but it's very much a part of life. And growing up, I would start to realize a lot of people, even our age now, haven't really lost people. And like it's just interesting to me to meet people who haven't really lost a lot of people or anyone.
Right.
So
Well,
yeah,
I think the thing that happens at 40 is your body really does start to deteriorate.
like the second you turn 40.
I mean,
Well,
yeah.
you just turned 40 last year. I mean, was there like a milestone reckoning of,
You know, you could,
thinking about death and mortality and things like that for you?
not really. I mean, it is kind of interesting when you think like it's like pretty much half over. You know, if you're lucky to live to
If you're
80.
lucky.
Yeah, to live
Yeah.
to 80. 76 is like the average
Yeah.
age, you know. But
Yeah.
here I am, 40. I just got braces, you know, trying to take care of myself.
Yeah.
But
Better
you
late than
do
never.
start feeling it, like in your body,
Oh,
you know.
yeah.
It just.
Oh, my skeleton hates me.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been very bad to my body. The 16 years of barrel racing where like my knees are hitting like metal barrels at full speed on a horse, or a horse falling on me, or being 3 and having a horse like bite your fingernails off, or getting kicked in the chest, all this stuff. And then singing in a band where I was just not kind to my body. I was breaking bones on stage, you know, and then a furniture mover for 10 years. I've been feeling, I've been in pain for a long time, but it certainly, you know, doesn't get any better. But I'm trying. I stretch like once a year. Every now and then.